welcome to a very special episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, and my guest today is Debi Tinsley, who is the voice actor for our book, True Grace, which this is Pub Day for True Grace. Hey, Debi.
Hi, Karen.
I'm so glad to have you back. Debi was also the voice actor for Reckonings, which I hope you have read and or listened to. It came out so well. So this is Reckonings, and she and I did this together last year. And then today is September 7th, publication day for True Grace. And we are both excited about our pub day. Let me tell you a little bit about Debi. So, as I mentioned, you met her last year, and she is a classically trained actor and singer, and now spends her professional time as a voice actor. And we're just so glad that our timing worked out, that you could take on this assignment as well, which was just great.
Yeah.
So, as an author, I have to deal with rejection. I have to research agents and publishers, and then query, and then you get silence. Sometimes you get silence, and sometimes you get encouraging no's, and sometimes you just get no. And I wondered what that process is like for a voice actor. What do you have to do to land the jobs that you have?
Well, I mean, it's very similar to what you described. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of sending out emails to publishers and producers, reminding them, hey, I'm here. When I started out, I was on a platform called ACX. And ACX is a platform where independent authors upload their manuscripts and work with a narrator to produce the book for audiobooks. So that's how most new narrators get started, because most publishers won't even consider you until you have about 20 titles under your belt. So that's a good way. Yeah. So that's a good way to up your numbers on Audible. So that's how I started with ACX. And then there's also a trade organization called the Audio Publishers Association. And that is comprised of all the big publishers, all the producers. And, it's a great opportunity to network. It's an opportunity to train. There are some workshops that they offer. So it's a combination of things. And, then the emails, every few months, send those emails out to the publishers, reminding them, hey, I'm here. Hey, I just finished this project. Hey, I've really gotten into this genre. If this is something that find a publisher or a producer that does a specific genre. Hey, I've just done some books in this genre. This is up your alley. Here are my samples. So it's just a combination of things, but networking.
Yeah, and reaching out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when I contacted you for True Grace, you had said to me, now it's coming back to me. You said to me, "Oh, I saw that it's coming out, and I was going to reach out to you." So we reached out at the same,
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you are considering a book, so you've reached out, and somebody says, "Hey, Debi, I've got this book, and I wonder if you'd consider it." What do you weigh, or are you still new enough that, like, somebody asks you, you just say yes?
I am really at a juncture now where I am stepping over into just saying yes, from just saying yes to everything to now being a little more picky. And I'm privileged and blessed that I can now do that. When I was on ACX, I would be able to get a sense of the writing. So I wouldn't audition for things that were really bad. So I had that opportunity. But if a producer sends me a book, I have not turned down anything that has been sent to me. what I love relating to, if it's good writing and something that I can relate to, that just makes the read a lot easier. But it may be something that I don't necessarily relate to, and then my challenge as an actor is to find how I can relate, to do what we in acting call the substitution. So if I don't relate to this, what do I relate to in a similar way that I can substitute for? So,
Bring to
yeah,
this and bring to this. Yeah,
exactly.
that makes a difference. I was just speaking to a young, new voice actor,
Mm-hmm.
and she did a sample for me of a previous book that
Mm-hmm.
I'd written, and she's had a lovely voice, and she did a lovely read, but
Mm-hmm.
she was reading. And the thing that I really admire about you is that you bring that acting talent to the
Yeah.
book. So it makes it come alive, not just you. Like I'm a good reader. People like my voice,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't do the acting part.
And
Um,
I think
yeah,
that I consider that's my job. That's my job as a narrator, you know,
yeah,
to
right.
bring all of the characters to life, to bring the narration to life as well. There's a tendency with some voice actors, some narrators, especially young, beginning narrators. They're okay when they're doing dialogue because there's stuff to, but you've got to bring that same energy to the narration because you have to keep the listener engaged because that tells a lot of the story as well. So
Yeah,
that's my job, to bring the life off the page.
that is, yes, that is exactly it. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and of course, I'm a reader, but
Mhm.
that's one of the ways I read.
Yeah,
And you can tell the difference between someone who enjoys bringing those characters to life.
yeah.
That's it's really good. So True Grace, it seemed to me, brought like an additional challenge that was different from Reckonings, and maybe it's something you do all the time. I don't know, but it seemed to me that it was like a more challenge because I had so many different accents.
Mhm.
There was the British accent and the Jamaican accent and the Southern accent and the New York accent.
Yeah, I was getting a
So,
little schizophrenic there for a while.
exactly. So how do you prepare? How do you prepare for something like
Well, in my training as an actor, dialects is part of the training. So I have some dialects in my back pocket that I can always jump to. And fortunately, British is one that I have. And I lived in New York for 20 odd years. So that's one that I I absorbed. Jamaican was not one, surprisingly, that I had in my back pocket. So that was the one that I had to study to get it for this book. And when you learn dialects, it's not just listening and replicating. There are things called shifts. So if you take the standard American dialect, then for a certain dialect to say this vowel sound shifts to this vowel sound for this particular dialect. So what I did was I
oh,
listened to Jamaican and I noted the shifts so that I could
huh.
apply it to, obviously what I was listening to in Jamaican dialect was not your language. So I had to be able to apply those shifts to your words. So fortunately, there is a formula to learning dialects. So it's not just
Oh,
listening. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. That there's certain that it's the different letters of the alphabet. Like Jamaicans don't do th.
Right. They do the T.
The
Yeah.
shift is a
Yeah.
T.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Wow. That's cool. So and then you just practice it a little bit and then you
Yeah. And then what you want to get the cadence, because especially with Jamaican, the
mm,
cadence is really important. Another one is Irish has a really interesting cadence. You can do all the shifts, but if you don't get the lyrics of the you're really not going to sound Irish. You have to have that cadence. So that was the other thing that's good for listening, to get the music of the dialect.
music of it.
Yeah,
Yes. Very, very nice. Very nice. And now you can add it Jamaican to your when
indeed.
you're pitching other people, and I do Jamaican. So, as you were working through True Grace, um, what did you enjoy about reading True Grace? What were some of the positives?
Yeah. Well, I love the period. I always say I was born like 50 years too late. So I love that period of time. And New York, because I love New York. One of my,
The period
probably,
is 1924.
right.
So the audience, yeah.
And so I like that period. And I love Grace because I love her growth. Um, you know, without giving too much away, you know, we as women, and especially as mothers, we're fierce mama bears. And, you know, she came from a position where she had been taken care of to a point where she had to take care of everything. And her growth in accepting that role for the sake of her children, I found very encouraging and something that I could relate to. So that was just seeing her growth was very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, she was quite a remarkable woman. She's my grandmother. The
Mm-hmm.
story is was inspired by my grandmother. And so of course I knew her much later in life. I didn't know her as that 27-year-old mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting meeting her in my mind
Right.
and through my research, and
Mm-hmm.
I had letters that she wrote, and I
Mm-hmm.
had books written about her dad, and so I had really good information.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew her, in her 50s, 60s, and she was a different person.
I'm
So
sure, yeah.
yeah, very much admired her. Um, so I read for pleasure. I listen for pleasure, but
Mm-hmm.
I also read and listen to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us about your reading, listening experience. Is that similar for you or?
I don't get to read a lot for pleasure
Mm,
anymore. Um, I listen to learn. I listen to the masters so I can learn. Um, and so when I'm searching for books to listen to, it's more the narrator that I'm looking for, because this particular narrator has certain skills that I want to hear. Um, and I was thinking about the last book that I read for pleasure. And it's interesting because this book I view as starting my audiobook career, because it was a book that just popped up in my Amazon feed as, you know, you might like this book. And I just randomly said, oh, okay. And it's a book that takes place in the 30s and 40s in Grand Central. And it's a love story in Grand Central. And having lived in Westchester County, New York, I spent a lot of time in Grand Central Station. And the funny story is that I was starting my voiceover training when I was reading this book. So we had these weekly workouts, and you could come with any genre of voiceover to work out. And so I had not done anything with audiobooks at that point. So for 1 week, I said, well, I'll just take the book I'm reading and read a couple of pages from that and see how that goes. So I took the book, I read the first page and a half, and my teacher said, Debbie, you could go out and do audiobooks tomorrow. I said, really?
wow.
And the book it's called Time After Time by Lisa Grunwald. Um, I then did a workshop with the Audio Publishers Association where we got to do one-on-one coaching with a publisher. So I took this book again. I worked with a guy who happened to be from the same publishing house that produced this book. And so I thought, well, maybe they
Mm.
paired us up because they knew what I was bringing. So I did the narration for him. He gave me his notes. And then he said, you know, Debbie, I wasn't going to tell you this in the beginning because I didn't want to intimidate you, but I directed that book. You know, it's like, of all the books, of all, you know, so that was kind of one of my signs from the universe that, okay, I'm on the right path. But it's a lovely book, Time After Time,
Mm.
Lisa Grunwald. I recommend it highly. Um,
Is it a time travel book?
it's not, it's kind of like a time travel, but not really. It's
Mm.
really interesting. And it's if in this author did a lot of research about Grand Central, because Grand Central's history is really important in the story. So she did a lot of about the construction and the different, back alleys and tunnels and everything within the terminal. So it's just it's a lovely, at the end of the day, it's a beautiful love story.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Time after time.
Mhm.
I have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Um, so our audience is now totally intrigued. They, they want to find books that you've narrated. They want to absolutely listen to True Grace, right?
Of course.
Yes. How can people find out more about you? How can they find the books that you've
Mhm.
narrated? How can they follow you?
So if you do a search for my name on Audible, it's Debi, Debi, Tinsley, Tinsley. And if you just plug my name in on Audible, all the books that I have narrated will come up. I have a website, debitinsley.com, DebiTinsley.com. And then on Facebook, Debi Tinsley Voice Actor. And so those are how you can follow me. And on my website, I have, not only do I have my audiobook samples, I have some animation, my animation demo, my commercial demo. So you can listen to the other stuff that I do is besides the audiobook narration.
Yes, I remember that when I first when we were trying to find somebody for Reckonings, and we were looking at different ones, and I went to your website, and I was able to listen to little clips
Mhm.
that you put up there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was very cool. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation. We're so glad that you came. Glad that you were here. Hope that you will follow Debi and look at the books that she has read, including Reckonings and True Grace. Thank you so much, Debi, for being here. Thank all of you for being here. See you next week on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Take care, everybody.